Good evening, morning, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to a very special edition of the Magpie Circle. Doesn't get more special than this. Playoff fever gripping Notts County, and we've not had the best of times recently in playoffs. In fact, the only time we've ever won some playoff campaigns was under the Neil Warnock era. So who better ahead of Grimsby than to get two of those Wembley winners under Neil Warnock? A very warm welcome to the show to Don O'Riordan and to Mark Draper. Don and Mark, delighted to have you on the show. And today we want to delve into what makes a playoff winner. Is it down to luck? Is it down to skill? What's the secret ingredient? Big debate on the playoffs all this week. A lot of issues with pitch invasions. Clearly issues at Nottingham Forest, but not just at Forest. In matches within the last 24 hours of being played here. We're going to get a player's view on those pitch invasions at the end of the season and how important it is to maintain player safety. And also, is there more pressure on Notts? The other two Nottinghamshire professional football clubs, Nottingham Forest and Mansfield, have both sealed their deal at Wembley. Mansfield going to Wembley, Nottingham Forest going to Wembley. Can Notts County make it a hat-trick? Let's get some thoughts and insight from the two guys. Any thoughts and views from you guys as well, please send them in. Don and Mark. Don, it's a nice, easy one. What made you so successful in the playoffs?
I suppose when you think back in the week building up to the actual finals, we went to the Belfry Drapes, didn't we, twice? And you know, we were so relaxed. It was incredible. Playing with a lot of the lads like golf, which was great. So we were doing things that we enjoyed. There was no real pressure on our shoulders at all. Neil had a plan, and on both occasions he stuck to the plan. But I think the preparation was just very relaxed. We obviously felt a little bit of pressure because it was a cup final at Wembley almost, so on both occasions. But I think had we trained that week and just trained and done nothing else, I think the pressure would have been immense and we could have buckled. You just don't know. We'd never know, I suppose. But I think, you know, Neil was a bit of a genius when it came to building team spirit and building confidence. And I just believe that when we went to the Belfry, it was like, it was a great atmosphere amongst the lads. And, you know, again, it's probably nothing that would happen these days, but we were allowed a few jars and, you know, we were going to bed all hours of the morning. I don't mean, you know, it wasn't obscene or anything like that. We were just having a good time. And Neil was kind of turning a blind eye and allowing it to happen because he knew that once we got on the pitch, we would give 110% for each other, back each other, and we'd fight any team in the land to get a victory. And I think on both occasions, that's exactly what happened.
Drapes, I mean, you were kind of at different stages of your career in terms of these playoff campaigns when Neil breezed into the club. Don, I think, was 32 in the first year. You were 18/19. What did you make of it all?
Like I said, I think we're looking at two ends of the spectrum of careers here, and I think speaking from a personal point of view, it was, you know, me and Tommy seemed to come as a pair, and we were always involved, coming through at the same time. The older players made us feel comfortable in our surroundings, and like Don alluded to, like Neil had a knack of putting lads together he knew would work together. I think that was his biggest strength, and he sort of like, I think he was fortunate enough to have a few fantastic Notts lads born and bred like Yatesy and me and Tommy coming through, but obviously you need a manager who's going to develop you at the right pace and the right time. And he did that with me and Tommy, dropped us in and out. And I mean, me and Tommy would always be moaning if we weren't playing. I mean, sometimes he'd say you're playing Saturday, but you're not playing next Wednesday before we'd even played the Saturday game. So I think that the spirit Neil built was definitely the main key. For me and Tommy, I don't think we really felt we were too young to have nerves. Like I say, it probably not meant more to the older players, but they probably realised more what it was all about rather than me and Tommy, because we were sort of like new to it all. And for us, it was just playing. We want to play the next game, and probably didn't realise at the time what we were quite doing at such a young age. But obviously, looking back now, we look at it differently. But at the time, for me and Tommy, it was just like, I want to play.
I guess that we want to. Okay, let's wind the clock back a little bit, because you would have both been. You would have been coming through the ranks. You'd have seen a defeat in a playoff campaign at Walsall. Don, did John Barnwell, or was it Neil that signed you from Grimsby?
Yeah, it was John. John brought me to Notts.
Okay, so John signs you. John misses out on the playoff campaign. Not the greatest of starts. So it wasn't a bad start. The managerial changes made. So in Breezers, this young, I don't know, some people will call him brash, manager from non-league, although he'd been very successful. And I think Neil has gone on record as saying that it was a really tough time for him in the early stages, because there were some quite strong and powerful characters in the dressing room. And how did you get on with Neil as one of the more experienced pros in the dressing room? Could you see there was real talent immediately, or are you thinking, this guy, not so sure?
Yeah, he was obviously a little bit different. I mean, I've been under managers like Cluffy, Tommy Doherty, Gordon, who else was there? Nobby Stiles, Bill Folks, legends of the game. And all of a sudden, this kind of a whippersnapper manager turns up, and you think, who is this guy? And he was very confident. I don't want to say arrogant. Maybe it could be a little bit more appropriate. But he believed in himself 100%. And some people would have a go at him as far as his tactical. His tactics and what have you, but he had a plan. He knew what he was doing. He did some strange things at times. Remember finding Charlie Palmer for a back pass. Remember that one, Drapes? I mean, it was intercepted and they scored, and it obviously gave Charlie a big fright, but also made sure that none of us defenders would be passing balls back, taking chances. We put it in Noel's head if need be. But he was fine with me, and I didn't. Obviously, in the first year, I didn't play in the final, but he made sure I was part of it, which was good for me. I was kind of sat. I wasn't even a sub as such, but I was in my kit, and he knew he wanted to give me what was probably one of my last big days of my career. He wanted me to be entirely involved, and I was. And the funny thing was, I got on quite well, very well with him, really, with Neil. And then the following season, he calls me in and says, "Look, I'm sorry, but your career is in the first team. It is over. I'm not going to play this year. I want you to be like player coach of the reserves." And I couldn't believe what he was telling me, that my career was over in the first team. And I started coaching the reserves. And probably September, Phil Robinson got injured, and I was brought in against West Ham, I think it was, and we lost 1-0. And then the next game was away in Plymouth. And he told me on the Monday I wasn't travelling down with the lads. I wasn't starting. I was being dropped for the first time he'd ever done that kind of thing as a manager. He dropped someone who played well against West Ham. And I was just completely gutted and probably lost respect for him. And then all of a sudden they go to Plymouth, the lads, and they lose 4-0. And I was back in the team on the Saturday against, I think it was Oldham in the Cup, and that was the start of what was probably the best season of my career. So once I was back in, I was very much, Drapes will probably vouch to this, I was very vocal on the pitch. I was literally doing what he wanted me to do, what he wanted to do, but he couldn't do it from the touchline, which was kind of organise the lads and stick to the tactical plan and so on. And, I had huge respect for the man in the end, especially, and how he handled me into what was, as I said, the best season ever of my career. So I have nothing but good words to say about the guy, but he knew exactly what was going on, and he handled the younger players like Drapes and Tommy amazingly well as well. I mean, the story went out there before, wasn't it, Drapes, about when we went to Scarborough, he took us to a guest house. Tommy and Drapes were in a bloody bunk bed, and it was mad, it was crazy. But he took us up the road one day for a walk, remember, Drapes, and we saw this 4-star hotel, and he said if we do well in the league, we'll come back there. And sure enough, we went back there. He was a man to his word, that's for sure. So he was a bit of a magician when you think about it, how he brought together such a bunch of lads who probably, any other manager would never have been able to bring the best out of them. But with the talent, the young talent that was coming through, and the experience of myself, Charlie, and what have you, and then you had obviously Yatesy and Shorty, Phil Turner, incredible lads who, were never, like myself and Phil at Grimsby, we were never superstars, but when we came to Notts, he just brought us all together, got the best out of everyone, and produced amazing results.
As a young lad, Drapes, so you've been making the tea. I think you've told me stories before. Rashid Harkouk, who was very recently 66 years old. Happy birthday to Rash. And I think you would say, like, taking the tea into that dressing room when you were coming through the ranks. It could be quite a scary experience. What was Neil like with you? I mean, was he strong with you? Were you scared of him, or did you warm to him? As a young teenager, what was it like, you and Tommy and anyone else on the fringe?
Yeah, I think Neil, he was very firm. Like Don says, when he first came in, you could see he had a confidence about him, and when a new manager comes in, you're weighing him up and the manager's weighing you up. And I think that was one of Neil's biggest strengths, really. I think he could, within a couple of weeks, he knew who he wanted in that dressing room and who he didn't. And that was his, he knew the characters he wanted pretty much straight away. And I think that's what he built his whole career on. Obviously, you need players with certain talent, but he could go and buy players that he knew would fit into the dressing room. He knew he could do what he wanted him to do in that team, and I think that was his strength. I mean, I've played higher up at when I ended up playing the Premier League for a long time, and I've often sometimes been in teams where people are a little bit unsure sometimes what they're doing. I think with Neil, especially when he was in his prime, that every player knew their job in that team. Do you know what I mean? If you weren't doing it, you were either coming off or you weren't playing. And I think for a player, whether I had many arguments with Neil. I wanted, I was a ball player and I wanted to play. And I mean, people call us long ball, but we played as well as long ball. But for me, I wanted to probably play a bit more. And we did have a few arguments, but I was a young kid, wanting to play the way I wanted to play. And Tommy was probably the same. But my respect's got a lot more for Neil as I got older and look back what he taught me, because when Don was on about Charlie, the back pass and all that, I don't know if Don remembers, but we were playing Barnsley on a Tuesday night. I think it was 2-2. I think last minute I've got the ball at right back. I think I've tried to do a step over around the left winger. He's took it off me. They've gone and scored, and we've lost the game 3-2. And Neil was just about trying to strangle me in the dressing room after him having a massive argument. And he actually, and this is gospel truth. This was about February. He says, if you dribble, he says you're now banned until the end of the season from dribbling an hour off. So for the last 3 months of the season, I was just hooking it on. but like I say, at the end of the day, it taught me, you don't give the ball away in them areas, and that stood me in good stead the higher up I went in the game, for definite.
That's an interesting one, Drapes. I mean, Don, freedom of expression, to make your own choices on the pitch, compared to doing exactly what the manager tells you to do and when to do. Where would Neil be on that sort of needle of things, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting, really, because I think it's this do's and don'ts what Neil wanted you to do. But I think once you sort of get into that last third of the pitch, that was when you're free to go and express yourselves and create. But up to Neil didn't want any risks. That's why I played. No disrespect to Charlie. Charlie, and he wouldn't take any risks. He'd be out for throwing every time, and Neil knew that. Get back in, get your shape, and defend the throwing. Like I said, there was no passing out from the back, or get it in there off as quick as possible in an effective way. But once we got to there off, we could play. If you look back at old footage, people call us long ball, but we were direct, but we weren't long ball. We were direct, but very effective. And funnily enough, as crazy as it sounds, when I was doing my A license in Ireland, we had the Klopp. In fact, it was CPD. Klopp's under 23 guy was there doing a session, and he was saying basically, Klopp in a different way, but Klopp wants 70% of possession in their half. Do you know what I mean? So very, very strangely, even though Liverpool probably get there a little bit different to the way we used to, it's still the same theory of like getting there off as quick as possible and then play. So, like I said, I think a lot of teams try and overplay out, and they just can't do it because it's hard to play from defence to attack. There's only the very best teams that can do it.
Don, what about that? The discipline of the manager telling you what to do, when to do, and how to do it, and the ability for you to express. From what Drapes is saying, and I'd value your thoughts on this, presumably Neil wanted you to play in a very disciplined way, yeah?
Yeah, very much so. You didn't want people taking risks, as Drapes said, especially in your own half. The plan, I suppose, from my point of view, was that when I was playing in home games, most of the time I would play in front of the back four. So he would give me a little bit more freedom to get on the ball and pass further up the pitch. When we played away from home, it was definitely a sweeper role I'd say 90% of the time. So, there was a little bit of difference to the style of play, especially when we were playing at home. The emphasis was on to win the games. But in general, there was a huge amount of discipline involved. And I say the same thing to my players nowadays. You've got to be disciplined. If you're going to reach the top, you've got to be so disciplined. And like Drapes is saying, don't be taking chances in areas where you might get caught and get punished. But he knew exactly what he was doing. He knew the limitations of each player. He knew how good they could be. He knew their weakness. If they were going to make a mistake, he would recognize it early and say to like Charlie, don't ever do that again, and Drapes, don't ever do that again. And cutting down the mistakes was in your own half was a positive, really. But going forward, like Drapes said, we did get the ball up. It wasn't just whacked. There was too many good players in that team for us, to call us a kick and rush team. We had fantastic players who all had good skills and wanted to play a decent football. And as I said, when Drapes said, when we got into that half, we had, when you think about the players we had with up front as well, we had Rijo and we had Kevin, who were like so quick. You had Lundy, who was great to feed. Tommy could play wide, Drapes could play wide. It was just an amazing amount of talent, in my opinion, that never really got the recognition it deserved at the time. But there was one little story that I remember talking about, the kickoff, Drapes. Remember the kickoff? He used to go back from, say, Lundy back to Tomo. And Tomo would hit a diagonal ball, Paul, to the right wing. And ball would go out of play. And Neil wouldn't be too bothered about that. He'd say, that's okay, box them in kind of thing. And don't let them out their half in the first 30 seconds. And then one day, I think Tomo put a perfect ball and what should have been onto Rijo's chest, and Rijo kind of ducked and let it go out for a throw in again. And Tomo said, Rijo, what are you doing? And he goes, what do you mean? He says, why didn't you control it? And Rijo says, what do you mean, control it? Do we not play for touch? Rijo was at the stage where he hadn't been in the club too long, but he thought that our kickoff was out of play automatic, and that was it. We're going to box them in. But really, Tomo was trying to land it on his chest or his head. It was incredible. And that's a true story. Rijo was like, what? We actually play from there? Oh, okay. I'll remember next time.
Yeah.
But
go
on, Dave, sorry.
No, I'm saying I think just was reminding me of another point about when you're saying like play out but then squeeze them in. Looking back, I don't think we get the credit for how fit and organised we were as well, which is the training was hard, wasn't it? I mean, we were a fit side, I mean, there was no passengers because Neil wouldn't have passengers because that's the way he wanted to play. And pre-seasons were killers, really. We were so fit, and like I say, if you're looking at professional teams now, that's the first thing. You've got to be 100% at your peak fitness before you even start. And Neil was really hard on that.
Okay, let's wind the clock back, and you won't believe how long. So it's 41 and 42 years ago since you guys were part of Notts County's most successful playoff campaigns under Neil. Now, I think in the first season of the playoffs,
Can I just start with, I think it's 31.
I was going to say, put another 10 years on my age there.
No, mate. I was only 10.
Having my mathematics corrected by Mark Draper shows you how badly I have fallen when getting A-level maths. 31, yeah. I keep saying 41 because I often default back to when Notts first got into the top flight in my lifetime. Now, that's my.
You've always got an excuse, mate.
Hands up, white flag. I'm waving the white flag on this one. Right. Okay. So 31 and 32 years ago. It's often been said to me that there's never any more than 11 players who are actually happy with the manager at any given time on the basis they're the 11 that are picked. And clearly everybody else thinks they should be playing. Why else would you be a professional footballer? Now, neither of you were directly involved, starting 11, for that first playoff, which ended with the 2-0 victory over Tranmere. We did have some messages sent in before this show saying they've been speaking to one of the players and that one of the huge assets, if you like, that Neil had was trying to keep in a collective group of players all willing for each other. So let's go first, Don. So what was it like for you? And how did you find out about that team? Was it a surprise when you weren't in it? Had you been expecting it? Where was your head with that playoff campaign? Two-legged win over Bolton, which was a tight one, if I remember right. I'm sure Drake is going to correct me here. And then beating Tranmere.
Yeah. No, I wasn't a regular by any means at that stage, and didn't expect to start. But as I said, the way he handled me, I thought was fantastic. When I look back, you're disappointed you're not going to get on the pitch at Wembley, but even just for the warm up and the celebrations afterwards, stood there in the kit. It was a really, I thought, pertinent, decision by Neil to include me. I think the following year, I'm not sure if I'm right, was it Chris Short? I don't think was in the starting or was in the squad, but he was just there with his blazer and we had obviously the grey trousers and all that. But I'm not saying he didn't ask Chris to kit out like I did, because I was like a fake sub almost, but I was very, very happy and delighted, how he handled me that day, to give me that opportunity to celebrate like I was one of the lads. I think that was important, So he was very good at man management as well. Some people might say he was too strict, but as I said, as we've already mentioned, as players, he has to be strict as a manager, and making sure that we behave ourselves, both on and off the pitch, and bring the best out of us. And I think he did that very, very well. So yeah, for the first game, I was just absolutely gobsmacked that he gave me that opportunity to be such a tight group, be in that tight group of players. And when we won, I celebrated as much as anyone. So I was thrilled. The following year, obviously, it was so different. I was in the team. There was still doubts going into the final that year. When was Paul Harding going to start, or was I going to start? And he stuck with me, which I was delighted about. And a day I'll never forget. Incredible experience. So yeah, the man was, like we said earlier, a bit of a genius. He wouldn't be the one to say he was the most tactically gifted. He had a plan. He got us to do the plan as well as we could, and we did it very well for those 2 years especially. And it was just brilliant being part of it.
Drapes, you were coming at it from a young teenager. Were you on the bench for that first game?
Yeah, I was on the bench. If I remember rightly, I played a lot of games early in the season. I think I might be wrong. Don will probably know better than myself. I think we signed Dean Thomas during that season. Did we sign him during that season, or was
very possible? Yeah, very possible.
Yeah, because I think he took my place. No, because I mean, for me, like I say, I was gutted. But I knew I was probably going to the bench because towards the end of that season, obviously Dean had come in, and when I look back now, Tomo was a fantastic signing, and we probably wouldn't have got in the final without him. Obviously, it was a little bit at my expense, but like I say, just for me, I was one of them kids who just wanted to play every week. But obviously, when you're looking back on it, it was a great decision. I probably weren't ready to play a full season at that age, and I was sort of in and out a little bit, and that was all part of the development. And like I say, when you look back now, it was a perfect sort of warm up for what happened for the next season when I became a full-time regular, and we went on to do exactly the same again. So it was like perfect ground. I mean, obviously at the time, I wanted to be playing at Wembley as well, and the game was building up to it. But when you look back, it was probably the perfect grounding for me, really.
Yeah, I'm reminded of when I'd have conversations with Martin O'Neill, who you would know well, Don, that Martin missed out on the first European Cup final win. He was coming back from injury and he wasn't picked, which was clearly gutting. But the following season, Forest got through to again, and he played in that one. And I guess, as Marcus just mentioned there, not dissimilar to you from a playoff perspective, neither of you played in that first playoff. But the following season, you became regulars. You played, Drapes, you hardly missed a game. Don, you played the vast majority of those games. And then you get to the game against Brighton. You start, you play, you win. Did that in any way make it a little bit more sweeter, Don?
Of course. Having had the conversation I had with Neil in August or July, whenever it was, about my first team career being finished, to actually end up at Wembley playing was just a dream come true. So I was over the moon, as they would say. My three brothers were over from Ireland. I remember crying before the match. They had the national anthem, I think it was, and I looked up and saw my youngest brother in an Ireland jersey in the stand. I was crying with 10 minutes to go on the pitch, and players probably weren't aware of that. I just had tears streaming down my cheeks that we were going to be playing in what is now the Premier League. And there was me 12 months ago, playing in the Central League kind of thing, coaching the young lads and what have you. And then, I met my brothers after the game and was crying again. It was a very emotional day, but it was a wonderful, as I said, the best day of my life as a football player. There's no doubt about it. And to be fair to him, he'd written me off, but he brought me back in. He saw the benefit of using me in the team. I was the oldest player in the team, and I was using my experience and the things that he wanted doing on the pitch. If he couldn't get the message across from the touchline, he was hoping I would relay it to the players. And that was a big part of my job, I felt, as well. The voice on the pitch, and it was just a magnificent period for myself and for the club. And forever grateful for Neil's backing, I suppose you could call it. Going back to Martin, I just a quick story. I don't know if I told you before, when Forest were in Calamalor before the game against Hamburg in the European Cup final. I was there with Preston. This time it was actually for a good reason, Paul. We avoided relegation that year, so they took us to Calamalor as a nice surprise. And the Forest lads were in the pub every night drinking us under the table, to be honest. And the next day they would go down the beach, jog for 20 minutes down the beach, have a few stretches, jog back. And that's all they did in preparation, And I was kind of telling people back in Preston, don't put money on Forest. They were in the bar every night. But that was Cloughie. That was another, that was like Neil and us in the Belfry. We're having a few pints. And Cloughie had the lads, having a few jars as well in Calamalor. Incredible when you think about those two managers. And it wasn't tactics that they were working on the week before these huge games. It was kind of team spirit and, the actual atmosphere being relaxed and so on. And both of them were geniuses, I think. There's no doubt about it.
Drapes, so What's your abiding memories, thoughts on the day out Brighton?
Just utmost confidence in the squad. I think we're absolutely flying by then. I can't remember. We won about 6 or 7 on the trot or something, and
both seasons you finished very strong, didn't you? Very strong.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. I just can't remember any negativity about. And I felt it a little bit when I first went to Villa the first year when I was there. You just go into games not knowing you're going to win, but just know if you lost, it'd be a big shock. So you just completely focused on what you're doing. You know what you're doing. Everyone's you trust everyone around you. Everyone knows what they're doing, and it was just a team that was. It's taken a hell of a team to beat us that day, and I think that was down to, like I say, the mentality, talent as well, but like I say, an unbelievable mentality that we're going to win. And like I say, 2 months before that, it just been building and building and building. We went to West Ham and they lost the title last game. I like to mention that because I scored both.
Yeah, I was just about to say, you scored a couple, didn't you?
Yeah. I mean, they had they were supposed to win the title that day, and for a team to go down there and beat West Ham away in the last game of the season just showed what a strong mentality we had, and like I say, that just carried on.
I mean, it's an oft-told story, isn't it, Don, about you had supreme belief that you were going to win that game. There's the Chubby Brown video story. Mick and Neil played at the expense of a tactical video of Brighton. What was that supreme belief born out of that you were going to win?
I think if you got to rewind actually back a little bit, Paul, we mentioned the run that we had. It was an amazing run towards the end of the season, but it all really started the day after the Tottenham game in the Cup. We would normally have a day off. If you remember, Drapes, nowadays they come in for recovery, but on that Monday, Neil said, "You're in," and we goes, "What? You're in tomorrow?" And he goes, "Yeah." So we were all looking at each other, going, "Oh, geez, wonder what's going to happen." And we got there. We sat in the dressing room just in our clothes, and then one of the apprentices came in and said, "The gaffer says put your kit on, and your runners, meaning your trainers," which would straight away signify that we were going to be running around the track. So he was going to run us because we lost the Spurs, we were thinking. And then next thing, we sat there another 10 minutes and somebody else comes in and says, "You got to go over to the sponsors lounge. The gaffer wants a word." And so we all went over there and we're going, "Geez, what's happening now?" And I think Neil walked in with a case of bitter and Mick Jones had a case of lager. And we sat there and had a few cans. Remember that, Drapes?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. We're sat there and we're drinking in the afternoon and like, we're looking at each other and going, "What's this about?" And then he just started saying, "What about the game yesterday? What do you think?" And we went, "Oh, unbelievable," And then, the atmosphere was incredible, full house, match of the day, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it was great. Absolutely brilliant. So he goes, "We can do that again next year, And he said, "What?" And he goes, "Playing grounds like that every week." And we're all looking at each other and he goes, "Anyway, look, have another can." And we had a second can and then I think a third can. And then by the time we were on our fourth can, we started believing what he was saying. And we were going, "Yeah, we can do that. I'm sure we can." I think Drapes was probably too young to even drink at that stage. But anyway, it was just an amazing, I'll never forget that conversation that day. For that guy to have that vision after we'd gone up the previous year at Wembley to go and plan for something exactly the same was amazing. And obviously, as we know, it worked. And on the day, like you said, we were just unbeatable, I think, mentally, as Drake said, which is very, very important. You didn't matter who you were playing. I was marking Ray Wilkins' brother, who was a very good player, and I was very nervous. But, I remember him being in absolute floods of tears afterwards because they thought they were going to win. They had no doubt. They were very, very cocky and thought they were going to win. But, the spirit of our team got us across the line. It really did. Amazing planning by Neil, as I said, from way back after the Spurs game. So, I'm mesmerized when I think back about what he did that day in that sponsors lounge because it turned our season completely. We were happy I think, mid-table at that stage. But when you look back at the number of games that we won between then and the end of the season, quite incredible. And he generated all that passion, all that belief, and we just went out and did what he told us to do, and got the results. And it was a brilliant, brilliant season.
Just a little bit on that. Trace, if you can hear me okay, I think some of the signals are dropping a little bit. I guess Tommy, with his goals, grabbed the headlines, but it was an unusual playoff in the final in the sense that you kind of dominated it from start to finish. And Brighton never got back in it, did they? You know, there have been historic comebacks off finals where teams been 2 and 3 down and got
just
back.
Just losing a bit, mate.
Yeah, we're having a few gremlins. Yeah, Jake, you were always in control that day from a very early stage of the game.
Yeah, like I say, I think from start to finish, we knew, you know, they call it game plan these days. They often go on about, and like I say, we all knew our roles. We knew what we could do, and even before the goal, you know, we had chances, and then Tommy scored a great finish with a snapshot. And I think as soon as we went 1-0 up, it was just going to be a matter of how many we win by, rather than holding. There's no what I can remember. I mean, it's a long time ago, but going 1-0 up, sometimes you're probably at Wembley with such a massive prize at stake. You probably might think, well, you know, like, I mean, you know, we've got good defenders. We can sit back and try and hold our 1-0 lead, but there was none of that. I don't think. I think we were just constantly like we just played the way we played, and we played like that most of the season. Really, you know, we all went forward together as a team, and we all got back together as a team, and that was the biggest strength for us. And like I say, once we got the second goal, it was just, you know, I think they knew as well that there was no way back for them.
Don, cast your mind back. It's only 30 years ago, not 40. Give us an insight. I don't know whether there's anything either of us could tell us that's broadcastable about what went on in that dressing room after you have beaten Brighton.
Yeah, I just remember having a Tommy Cooper hat on. I don't know where that came from. I think one of the fans threw it to me, and I even had it on my head on the way back on the bus, actually. The celebrations, yeah, they were really, really remarkable. You know, it was, for someone like myself, it really brought it home to me that the dream of one day in your career playing at Wembley had come true, and it was a successful one. Especially having, like I said, missed out the year before, and I have no complaints about that. It was just a remarkable day for myself personally and for the club. So yeah, the celebrations were like mad. Everybody going crazy, as you can well imagine. The fans that day were just unbelievable. I remember the journey back to Nottingham. It felt like, you know, it was just a stream of cars with black and white scarves hanging out of it, and the bus was just floating along the motorway to get back. And when we got back to Nottingham, the night that we had in the club was just amazing as well. There was champagne flowing all night. It was incredible, absolutely incredible. Days like that you just never forget. And there wasn't many like that in my career. That was probably the only one, but you know, it was well worth the wait. And one, as I said, I'll never forget. It was brilliant.
Drapes?
Yeah, I mean, I can just remember just you know, feeling the feeling of it. It was great the year before, but I think to play, probably been a bit selfish. To actually play, you just felt a lot more part of it as well. Even though you know, you're still part of it. To play and actually feel that emotion when you're winning, and the fans was amazing. I think probably being so young again, probably didn't quite appreciate what we were doing at the time, because, like I say, it was only our first probably 2 years playing. I will say we, it was Clan Tommy as well, but we'd been to Wembley both years, so we were probably just thinking this is just normal. Every season we go to Wembley. So probably took it for granted a little bit. But obviously, looking back now, for being such a young age to go to Wembley twice and win twice, it was absolutely amazing. And like Don says, the biggest thing I remember is back at Meadow Lane, because all the family. I actually lost my father before the second final, the year in between. The same age as myself now, so which was doubly, great to see. But obviously, I was thinking about that as well. So it was brilliant and tough at the same time. But I can always remember sort of mingling with all the fans and families and stuff. And I don't think that'd happen these days because there was 2 or 3. Everyone was piling into the Meadow Club, and then there was a couple of other lounges open where you'd be wandering around. And it was just, I don't even think it was tickets or I think it was just fans just piling into and players mingling with them, which I don't think had happened these days. But an amazing part of Notts County history and an amazing bunch of players to do it with.
Let's try and just bring this sort of full circle into current day. I want to talk a little bit about, because it's very topical at the minute. And let us get a player's view. There was the very high-profile incident involving a fan attacking a player, Billy Sharp, on the sidelines. That player's now been jailed for several months in the Nottingham Forest-Sheffield United playoff when there was a pitch invasion. There have been several other pitch invasions at playoff games and final home games of the season. There was another incident at Everton against Crystal Palace. I think it was last night before we're broadcasting. Incident Port Vale and Swindon in their playoff game. Clearly, it is going to be a very big night for Notts against Grimsby on Monday. And I think it's not necessarily been widely promoted. It's been part of the reason that Grimsby's ticket allocation was kind of capped at 2,000 from a health and safety perspective. As a player, Don, what's your take on kind of what's happened in the last week? Is this something that has to be clamped down very, very quickly for the safety of players? Are we overreacting? End of season, fans go on the pitch 99% of the time. There isn't a problem.
Yeah.
But this week, there clearly has been.
Yeah, it's sad. That's the only word I can think of at the moment, because the fans have been there all season supporting their team, and then they win a game, which is a huge game. The semi-final is probably more pressure than playing in the final for players and probably obviously for fans. But the majority of the Forest fans were just elated and just wanted to be on the pitch celebrating with their players, and absolutely, I think it's okay to do that as long as everyone behaves themselves. But unfortunately, you're going to get an idiot now and then who's going to overstep the mark and may have had a few too many pints and reacts like this guy did to Billy, who is one of the nicest guys you're going to meet in the game. For him to get hit like that was very, very low, very sad. And it would be a shame if the league now bans all pitch invasions, and invasion is the wrong word really, but allow the fans to go on and congratulate these guys in their club who they've been watching for the whole season. I think that's a lovely, lovely feeling from a player's point of view, and it's great for the fans to get close to the players. But if this kind of thing continues, I think it'll be, there'll be no such thing as the fans allowed onto the pitch at the end of the game, and that would be sad. But players have to be priority number one, absolutely. Can't be, and managers like obviously Vieira last night, supposedly a reaction from him after the Everton game, which again is very, very sad. So you look, Everton, they have a problem, I think, on their hands now with that. Maybe Patrick has an issue as well, unfortunately. But I would love to be able to say, yes, if I was, in charge of a club, that the fans would be allowed on to congratulate the players at the end of the season. But if somebody is going to, these idiots are going to continue to cause harm like this, well, then you probably have to stop it completely. So I'd say, there'll be some kind of decision made in the very, very near future to sort this out. And it'll probably be nobody allowed onto the pitch. So we'll see. Let's wait and see what the outcome, what happens from this.
Drapes, any thoughts? Anything during your playing career? Were there any pitch invasions, end of game, that put you in a difficult position, or was everything fine from your perspective?
No, I think we experienced. I think it happened with Notts when we won the playoff semi-finals, and I think, like I say, it's great for the fans to they followed you all year round, home and away, some of them, and. Like I say, I don't know if it's just the times a bit with people. We can try and look for excuses for certain people, but with a bit frustrated with the life different, and just takes one crazy guy who's had too many drinks, and which happened the other night, which was an absolute disgrace. It could have caused him some serious damage, Billy. I mean, that was shocking. And the guy's probably waking up the next day. Already he's got a missus and I had a good job, and he's probably waking up thinking, what the hell have I done? But like I say, it can't carry on. How do you stop these? How do you stop the fans going on at last? You can't put barriers up because obviously, that's a health and safety issue. So how do you stop 20, 30, 40,000? You can't stop them if they want to come on. So, and it's a shame because, like I say, 9 times out of 10, it all goes smoothly. They have a bit of a... They want to hug the idols and have a photo, and makes the day even better, especially when they've just stayed up or won the playoffs or won something. So it's a tough one. And like I say, it's always the same. You get the odd idiots ruin it for everybody else.
Yeah, I think this story might run a little bit, guys. I mean, historically down the years, the messages from the club for like end of season games, the last home game when fans want to come on the pitch, was that stewards would form kind of a barrier, if you like, hopefully to give enough time for the away team to get off the pitch. And then fans would kind of be complicitly allowed onto the pitch. But unless you're going to have fences and barriers, and if people decide they want to get on and swarm at the stewards, that they're physically not going to be able to stop them. They're just not going to be able to stop them. And I think... I think there could be some quite serious ramifications, because I think if the authorities don't kind of get tough, then I think this might happen a bit more and more. But we shall see. Don, Monday night, a playoff game, Grimsby Town. So we've not done too well recently. 3 playoff campaigns in the last 4 years, as we said before. Lost to Coventry in a playoff semi-final. Lost to Harrogate in a playoff final, and last year lost to one of your former clubs, Torquay.
Yes.
Now, none of your former clubs, Grimsby, they've come down as well, looking to bounce straight back. What do you make of that one? You said, I remember on the show when Ian first came, you hear good reports, give him a little bit of time just to sort of understand a bit about the National League, having been out in Scandinavia. Although you're not fighting to get in the Premier League or First Division, given the gulf between National League and the way it operates in the Football League, this is just such a huge fixture for 2 clubs who absolutely consider themselves to be Football League clubs.
Yeah, it's again another one of these. At the beginning of this season, I'm looking and thinking Torquay, Grimsby, Notts County. There's only going to be 2 of them possibly go up, and now it's only going to be 1 again possibly. It's a tough one for me because I had my time at Grimsby wasn't successful, but I really enjoyed it. Nice, great people, really, really good people. My time at Notts, best time of my career. But I've always tried to remain neutral regarding, who goes up in this situation, who goes through. There's no guarantee of going up. You've got to get through this game. It's going to be a tough game. There's no doubt about it. Am I right in saying that? I think we got a last-minute winner at Grimsby, and they got a last-minute winner at.
That's right.
Meadow Lane.
Yeah,
Is that right?
both
Yeah.
teams
So
strong at
yeah,
home, but
so they both,
one at each other's ground.
We obviously lost at home in the league, so we'll be looking to win obviously on Monday. But Grimsby will come and they won't lie down. We know that. Paul has done a really good job to get them to the playoffs. To be fans saying, "Oh, we should have gone up automatically," but there was a few dips, similar, I suppose, not so. There wasn't consistent dips, but again, you're hoping that Notts would go up automatically. It didn't happen, and here we are now in this scenario again with the playoffs. And let's hope it's going to be more successful than the past. But it's there's still a long way to go, isn't there? You got to get through this game and the next game, then you're at Wembley. So it's very, very a tough run in at the end of the season, but the rewards are huge. Yeah, to be Notts County and be out of the Football League is unthinkable. When you think back to the times that we were together, me and Drapes at the club, and it's getting to the stage now where just being out a little bit too long, and I really do hope this is the year that this club can get back into the Football League and start climbing back to where we were back in the day. And it's going to take time, but hopefully this will be the first step on the ladder this year with a good run and a win at Wembley.
Different structure of playoffs in the National League, Drapes, to when you guys were playing them and the current Football League. So one leg, team that finishes highest in the division gets home advantage. And of course, the second and third place teams don't play in the first round of the playoff. Notts have home advantage against Grimsby. One-off game. How much of an advantage does that potentially give you?
Playoffs to playoffs. I think we've seen it in the last. I've watched most of the games this week, and you just don't know. It's like obviously I'm a Forest fan as well, and no, not seriously, but I'm a Forest fan. My dad from a young lad. But,
absolutely, I know that.
The away team was the best team in both legs. I mean, Forest went to Sheffield and dominated it, and then Sheffield came to Forest and dominated. So whether it can be for me, you'd much rather play at home, but more pressure, more expectation. Sometimes you're going away, you've nothing to lose. So it is a tough one. It's the playoffs. Anything can happen. I don't think there's a real advantage for anybody. I've not been to Notts loads recently, but I did actually see the Grimsby game. I went down for that one early in the season, and they looked a decent side, to be fair. So it's going to be a tough game. Notts are probably slight favourites, but like I say, it's just one of them where they've just got to go out and try and forget what's at stake and nerves, and like I say, back to when we played, positive attitude, and just have no thoughts of losing.
If you had any advice, Don, and I'm not talking tactically or anything like that, if you had any advice for Notts professional setup, preparing for the game on Monday night, and they do listen into these, what could you say to them? What might you say to them?
Do you mean the players or
the
players? Yeah, look, I look back to the Middlesbrough game at home, and I think that was from my point of view anyway. I know Drake's played a lot more at a high level than me later on, but I don't remember a game with so much pressure as that game. I thought it was a poor performance by both teams that night because there was so much at stake. And then we get a brilliant goal. Drapes, you put that ball in, did you, for Paul? Yeah. Brilliant whip ball in, and Paul scores with a header. And the place erupted, didn't it? Again, I think there was a pitch invasion before the end of the final, even before the whistle went. But there's going to be pressure. There's no doubt about it. The home advantage, I'm hoping, will help. which is why I'd love to just encourage the fans to just support the lads. When somebody misses an opener, don't even go there about, oh, that's rubbish. Everything has to be positive. The players have to be positive. The players have to back each other, as Drapes was saying. We had no doubt when we played in any of these games that we would know that every single player would back each other 100%. If Drapes made a mistake, I would get him out of trouble. If I made a mistake, Shorty would get me out of trouble. We were totally together, and I'm sure, the Notts lads would be very, very same in this game. It's a lot of games to play to get up, but obviously it'll be well worth it if they can achieve it. And you've got to, as I said, use home advantage. Everyone knows the dimensions of the pitch, etc. But I say the fans, I think, will play a huge part. And if they can be positive all the way through, encouraging the players, I think that's going to be a huge advantage for the team. It's a team that both teams should be in the non-league situation, but they're there. But this is an opportunity for Notts to make the next step to get in. Is it Wrexham next game if we win?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wrexham
So
away.
again, that's a tough game as well. But when Notts play at their best, I think they're fairly unbeatable, and they need now, 3 amazing performances, and hopefully they can achieve it.
On that positive note, Don and Mark, thank you very much indeed for taking a trip down memory lane, giving us a bit of an insight into what's needed to navigate a course through the playoffs. You guys and your teammates and Neil Warnock did it more successfully than any other group. One thing I hadn't fully realised, Drapes, when we played at Wembley, they were the first year that the playoffs had moved to Wembley,
No, I don't know.
Yeah, it was the first year because you used to play them over like 2 legs, and they experimented with the bottom team playing a team from above and all sorts of things. But when we went, they were the first years that they moved them to Wembley. So you timed it right.
I can't remember, like 40 years ago. I can't remember.
Yeah. Maybe 30 years ago. I know. White flag, wait surrender.
Drapes, the first year when we played Tranmere, didn't we go to the Saturday? There was a game on the day before, wasn't it?
Yeah, we had to watch, yeah.
And Neil
took us to Leyland Daff.
Yeah.
You didn't you sit in the Tranmere end or something?
Was it a week before?
No, was it?
I thought Neil made you sit in your Notts County tracksuits in the Tranmere end, and they're all thinking, "What on earth's going on?"
Yeah, maybe, but yeah, it was fairly beneficial, wasn't it? Did we go for a walk on the pitch as well on the morning? Second year, was it?
Yeah.
That was something, wasn't it? That was, I think, beneficial. But yeah, he covered every blade of grass, as they say, in this preparation, Neil. So did a really, really good job. So
it was very streetwise. I think he told me when I was writing my book that he used to literally, bribe's a strong word, but let's just say hand a bit of cash over to a steward to allow you to get into the ground to Wembley to be able to have a little look round before when you were officially allowed in. Or that's what he told me anyway.
That was Charlie's fine, wasn't it, Drapes?
It was all the fines.
There was a few, yeah. There was a good few.
That's another story.
And he also said, and give us a player's perspective, because I know from my time at Leicester what it can be like. He said he'd also almost like tell you, spend half a day or whatever it was, getting all your tickets sorted and everything. Because it can be a nightmare, can't it? Because everyone you've ever met once or went to school with all come on to you and say, "Oh, I'd quite like to go to the game. Can you get me a ticket?" And I'm guessing from the Emerald Isle, Don, you must have been chartering a Ryanair special to get them all over.
No, there wasn't so many. Just my brothers, really. My 3 brothers. That was amazing to have them there. It was brilliant. There was a few more people wanted tickets for the Man United game, the first day of the following season, which we won't talk about, having done my Achilles. But there was a lot of people wanting tickets for that game. unfortunately, I think maybe I got a couple more tickets than what I did for Wembley. But yeah, people just want to be there. They want to be there, part of the celebrations, please God. And hopefully, as I said, if the lads can come through these barriers now, it would just be a remarkable feeling for them, and something the club richly deserves. The Grimsby fans listening to this will be saying I'm two-faced, but I just feel that it's such a, every club I ever played for, I really have an affiliation for them, but Notts was no doubt the best of my career. In my career, so I've got to stick with the boys for this one. But they deserve it. I think they deserve to be back in the league, with being such a club and the way they're looking to progress, aren't they, and improve things at ground level, from the youth up and what have you. So I'm hoping that we see them back in the league at least to begin, and then we'll see what happens after that. But fingers and toes crossed, as they say.
Drapes, Don, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to catch up with us on Wembley Revisited 30 years ago. Obviously, everyone, it goes without saying, wishes Notts County all the very best on Monday evening. And for everybody who is there, please bear in mind what has happened at football grounds in playoffs up and down the country over the past week, and ensure that you stay in the stands at the end of the game. Thank you very much indeed. Look forward to catching up with you all very soon.